Okay, class. So this is a model that we worked on with Evelyn. It was a bit of a challenge because the images were kind of like it's a coral, right? So it's kind of small. The images were like that. It was like that small, and it's not that bad for being a coral, right? But usually the point is that usually 3D scans can't achieve that level of detail, but you can sort of like trick it into being. How? The 3D scan will scan like low resolution detail, so it will never get to those like beautiful crevices of the coral. But remember that it can get textures. So since we can get textures, then we can use those textures, which is what happened here. We can use those textures to create what is called a displacement map. Like we can create a black and white texture where we take all of the detail and we create a grayscale image on it. And we use that to add a node that is called, it's in the generate on Blender 4. And it's on the deform tab, it should be, displace modifier. That one. The one that I don't understand what it means, but it has a couple of triangles. So here I add the display modifier and it looks a bit crappy. But the way this works is that you set generate new. You click on the, I call this the Mario Brothers. I come back to modifier and I call it like the Dr. Mario pills button. And that allows you to create texture. So I'm going to say, in this case, I mean, I'm just playing with this one, right? But I'm just going to say clouds. And there you have clouds, which is a noise pattern, and you can change the size of the pattern. Actually, I think that you can pretty much do a coral without even doing it on purpose. And it deforms the mesh according to the grayscale values of this cloud. Now, right now it looks a bit weird. So if I go back here, I have this thing here that says strength, so I can dial down that to 0.5. And mid-level means if you have an image that has gray would be don't push vertices in, like keep vertices where they are. What is white is push out, and what is black is push in. Very important, because this was completely destroyed, is that you play around with those things a bit and that the topology is correct. For instance, if I use the grid here, oh my, it looks so valuable. If I use this grid here that has a grid, and I will add a modifier that's going to be generate subdivision, so I'm going to do simple and generate a couple of those. Press Command A to add it, and then I'm going to do the same deform displace. It's going to move the thing, and then I'm going to say new. I'm going to click on Dr. Mario, and I'm going to choose clouds, or I don't know, Voronoi is a type of pattern. You can see that here. So as you can see, the pattern distorts that, which is kind of cool. And you can change the intensity or even the size. So I don't know if you want something that looks a bit more like sand. Would be like that. Nabla, I don't have any idea what that is like. Different weights are different things. So now it's like a standard beach kind of thing, kind of floating. So that's a property of the modifier. Set down the strength to like kind of high. I'll push the mid-level to very low. And if we want this to be an actual beach, just for presentation purposes, we can do some pink sand coloring, because of course pink sand. As far as I know, I've heard that this came from a beautiful place. Good. So that's with the displace modifier. It's very important that you get to know it, because what I'm going to show you now is how to take this texture, and this has to do with a roller idea that Evelyn had, but how to take this texture here and transform it into something we can use to create patterns that we can then 3D print. Okay, so the thing is, we have the stone here, and to turn this into a texture that we can then use with the displacement modifier and apply to anything, first we need to go into a camera. Okay, so if we click the camera, I have this one modified so it's precisely where I want it. The camera settings are here. For what we're doing, I will go here into the camera and use like a pretty telephoto type of lens, because if I do a little number like 12, things will be kind of exaggerated, which is the reason why when you take selfies you don't look great, because wide angle cameras make you look nosy. They make dogs look cute, but humans look not exactly cute. But if I do a telephoto, which is a 135mm or something like that, it will look pretty flat and flattering. Great, so I have the camera there, I'll keep the camera, and here comes the weird part. I want this to look, and then realize that I'm using viewpoer shading here. I want this to look as a grayscale image where the parts that are closer to me seems are wider, and the parts that are further away seems darker. It's a way to encode the distance between the camera and the object. Okay, so for that I need to go into the image properties here and check mist and Z on passes, data passes. Once we do hit that, which is here again, view layer and data passes, I need to make sure that again I'm on viewport shading, and I press this little arrow here and I go into render passes, and I see that I don't have anything because I need to go back into world and make sure that I have the mist passes enabled. So mist pass is there. So I'm going to do render passes here, and I'm going to do, I go back here, I point on the little arrow, I check on render pass, and I check mist. And you might see nothing, you might see a gray thing, can be like that. Now that we have that, we can go into the world and we can expand mist. Okay, and then I have a start point and an end point, and I can start dialing down these things, and you will see that if I move them a bit, you will see like a grayscale image. So as you can see, it's very subtle, but you can see that there is a grayscale encodement of how this look. I don't care if the objects that are close are dark or white, because I can always invert an image, which is what I'm going to do afterwards. So mist pass, I'll do 8.5. No, that's too much. 8.4. I don't want blowouts. And depth, let's see, that's too much, and that's sort of okay. Good. Now we have that, and we need to make a pattern. So the easiest way to do this is if I go into Shift D, and I can then rotate and add some patterning in a way. So Shift D, and I press G here, rotate so that I don't repeat the details. Shift D. And Shift, and then I press R to rotate. I want to sort of like cover the whole scene. Sweet. Now if I go into render, into view, I can click on view render, viewport render image. I will take out all of these things so I can render without interference. I'm going to viewport render image. That will render the image as it's seen on the viewport, and it looks kind of spooky, right? Great. So I will save this one, and I'll save it as coral texture, and I'll save it with color depth 16. Okay, that means that it has more grayscale layers. Otherwise, it will look like it's a cheap 3D print. Good. Now that we have this, I can actually go back into my normal render, or go back into check this out here and do render combined, so that I can see all the things, and I can actually get rid of the whole thing. I don't recommend to totally get rid of things, but in this case we will. And I can go back into the grid thing that I wanted to do before. Again, the trick of the grid is that it needs to have a lot of detail. If we are going to add displaced texture, so I'm going to generate subdivision. I'm going to turn again into simple subdivisions and do like 3 and press apply. And actually we will need a bit more. So again, subdivision, simple, apply. Okay, that's a bit better. I hope this doesn't crash. And now I'll do the modifier, which again is the third column, in this case fourth row in Blender 4, which is called displace. Just like before, the first thing it does is that it moves the thing. So I say new. I go into the Dr. Mario pills, and instead of doing the Stucci, Voronoi, Wood, etc., I leave it at image or movie, and I click on open. And I have this thing in the desktop, and I congratulate myself because I named it sensibly. And I open the image, and there you can see the resulting pattern. It's not bad, actually. I mean, it's the first time I tried with this, so I will actually add a modifier here to make it look a little bit better. Another subdivision. If you add the subdivision afterwards, it sort of makes it look better. If you add it before, it will translate the texture better, as you can see there. It's translating pretty well. I'll do 2. Yucky. Yucky, yucky, chicken teriyaki. Okay, so yeah, this worked pretty nice. Now probably someone is asking like, but you're supposed to make a roller, and what if you want the texture to be repeated? Well, those are some other things, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'll only show the roller problem, which is that if I add a mesh, and the mesh is, say, a cylinder, by default, cylinders have a very particular kind of mapping. Sorry, I will turn on these things again so I can see what I am doing. Okay, cylinders have a very particular type of mapping. What is that? If I press the cylinder and I go into UV editing, you will see that the cylinder is represented as those awful things. So we will get rid of, so we need to do some preparation. We need to select the faces because they're using half of the texture, and remember we rendered a square image. So I'll do X, I delete the faces, then I select all of this thing, and I do sorry, not that, but and I do U on the 3D object and I say cylinder projection, and it's going to make something awful. So I'll just do my best here and put this one and make this the size of the object, which for our purposes should be enough. Second thing, we need to make some modifications. So for that we will do Command R, and I will scroll my wheel so I can add and delete edge loops. Double click, and just like we did before, add a modifier that is going to be generate subdivision. If you're confused of why the thing is called generate, it's relatively simple. It's called generate because it adds more like you give it some geometry and it adds more geometry. So it generates more geometry. And then here the form, which is not adding the geometry but deforming what geometry you have. We'll do direction, just okay. And here I'll use the one I had before, which is texture 02. And it might look a bit weird because the coordinates are local, but we need to do coordinates UV. And this confronts us with a fantastic problem. Because we see this thing and it's correct, but there are a couple of things that are important. The first one is that we want to remap the color. So I'll do color remap. You can do that in Photoshop if you want to. But if you remap the color, which means just invert it, I mean, I'm doing this thing that is taking forever, but it might just be easy to open Photoshop and do it there. So I'll actually turn the color remap off. Off, I said. Okay. And I'm gonna open Photoshop very quickly, and I'm just going to invert the texture. And we will be also happy because Photoshop is kind of a, or at least it was, sort of a comfortable little software, and I can just go into open, go into desktop, double click on the object and press Command I, which inverts stuff. Isn't that great? And now that we're in Photoshop, we can actually do something else that is pretty useful, because you notice that if I go here, it's not seamless. So there are all sort of software that does this for free now, but I'll have it die hard. Going to filter, other, offset. And just dial this a bit. And move this one a bit. And now you have a horrible offsetted image, which is not that bad, because if you use the fix or remove stuff tool, sometimes tools works for other things. Okay, clone stamp, then old school. I can use the clone stamp tool and just copy some things so that it's not completely how to say it, so that it's a bit more seamless. It's not an easy image to make a seamless thing, but we'll give it a shot. Again, chicken teriyaki. I think that I got late to the Rosalia thing, but it's good because I didn't want to the concert. That's like cheaper. It's good. Okay, I'll leave it at this. I'll press Command S, so I save the image with the same settings I had before, and I go back into the Blender thingy, and I go into my texture settings here, and I'm going to open the thing, and I open the same coral texture, which now will be completely different because I modified it on Photoshop, and as you can see, now it's in the correct orientation, which is kind of great. And we have some sort of like a horrible alien roller thingy. If you want to modify some stuff, you need to dial down the strength perhaps, so 0.5 makes it a bit better. Just like before, you might need to generate subdivisions for the resolution of this to be actually meaningful. There are some things that, of course, could have been done better, but you know, this is the first try. And the cool thing about having textures that are like this is that if I go back into the UV map, which is that thing that I had before, and I just make this larger, and I go back into object mode, you can have, it's not, as you can see, it's not fully seamless, but you can have some pretty cool model made out of a 3D scanned object. Okay, I'll do 3. Don't go overboard. Try never to do like something higher than 5 as the LOD or level of detail. Like here, I'm really pushing my luck doing 4. And once you finish this, that you're so happy, it's actually quite good. Like it. Once you finish this, always decimate the thing before sending it to 3D print or whatever. Okay, because if you don't do that, it's gonna take forever. It's gonna make things slower, and you're gonna say that you need a faster new computer, which is not true. You just need time and decimation. In this moment I need time and decimation, that's it.